Straight games, no filler. This is Status Quo, and this is episode number 24.
Woo!
And yeah, 24. Kobe Bryant, doing it big.
Yeah.
My name is Queasy Crayfish. If my voice sounds a little messed up, it's because I was actually recently, literally a Queasy Crayfish, getting over a little bit of sickness.
He was a crayfish.
Yeah, I was also very queasy, so excuse that. And yeah, also, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, as always,
Marz V.
Marz V. V stands for unmentionable things.
Exactly, a lot of stuff. Who knows?
We have another fantastic show for you today. We're going to be talking about the next generation of consoles, since there's already been some stirrings and developments about that, possibly PS5 under production and all that stuff. We're going to bring back OverUnder, one of our old segments, overrated, underrated games, pretty much every topic under the sun. We're going to talk about retro games in that context, overrated, underrated. And we're going to talk about some new releases. We've got Soulcalibur 6, and we've got Call of Duty Black Ops 4000 releasing. Yeah, Blops releasing within the same, 14 days or so.
The same Fortnite?
Oh, yeah. That's very fitting, actually. And lastly, we're going to talk about my favorite topic in the whole wide world, Shenmue, which, of course, I bring it up every episode. I know listeners are probably tired of that, but
I'm sure if we have like a decent fan base, there's like a Shenmue Streets of Rage count going on. I bet you I'm winning. But
really,
I don't know.
I don't know. It's probably close, but nothing wrong with that.
Right.
If you like a game, you like a game. Anyway, those are the topics. We're going to get to those in a second, but first we have to cover some flake news. So Mars Vindicator, Mars V, question mark. Are you ready for some flake news?
I am. And don't forget the music.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll start that right now. And first up on the flake news docket is EA, Electronic Artisans, are exploring Command & Conquer remasters for the PC.
That's dope. I wouldn't necessarily call it flake news. Like, I think it's cool that those things come out because none of those games have a lot of fans, including you. But I mean, I feel like I could have guessed that. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't they be doing that?
Yeah, it's like they've already done. I already own a compilation of 10 Command & Conquer games, and on top of that, the thing that makes this flake news to me is the fact that the guy that they quoted as talking about this was in charge of production on Command & Conquer 3 and on Red Alert 3. So two of the most subpar entries in the series, not counting Command & Conquer 4 and this new
that
mobile thing.
Yeah,
exactly. So you got that guy in charge of it. They claim no microtransactions. I bet you it's going to be full of microtransactions and, you name it, but, or just general bastardizations.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's EA.
It's EA. It's what they do.
Exactly.
So that's, I'm calling flake news on that one. Secondly, and this similarly, Diablo 3. I just stopped right there. Diablo 3
basically
will be supporting crossplay with the release of the new Nintendo Switch version. It will be supporting crossplay across all platforms, however.
Oh, the PS3, the 360, the Super Nintendo, the Odyssey. Yeah, cool.
Well, yeah, Jaguar, 3DO, all those.
WonderSwan.
All those.
Even the Tiger handheld version that they only sold.
Neo Geo Pocket Color, it's all there.
Well, damn.
You don't even have to count the money. It's all there.
Well, I mean, maybe I should finally actually play that game. I don't know. I mean, I mean, it's cool. It'd be cool to see a cross-plat through just everything. If you have the game, you can play the game with everybody else who has it. But I mean, yeah,
except, PC players will be vastly, more powerful because of the control problems on something. Like, there's no way a Switch player is going to be able to contend with a mouse and keyboard in Diablo 3. It's just not going to happen. So,
but it's not all PvP, is it?
No. I mean, there's PvE as well, but I mean, yeah, I played it on PS4. I thought it was. I actually beat the game, but I thought it was extremely boring. I was just like trophy hunting, and there was nothing else out at the time, so I was just kind of like, eh.
There it is.
But there it is. Yeah, man, this next one gets me too. PSN name changes are coming in quote early 2019 end quote.
I mean, like, I'm happy because, as you guys can see, I changed my name, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. But it's flake news in the sense that, like, it took you guys this long, and like, there's that news. But I've looked into that, and they've been saying some stuff like it's going to work on, like, it'll work perfectly on all games that came out after like April 2018 or something.
So April 1st, 2018.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when I go online, to play Tekken 6, you know what I'm saying, on PS3? Is my name good?
I'm sure you'll be doing that, but
I will.
But I don't understand why that is. Like, why is that even a big deal? Why does that, like, destroy everything? I don't understand that. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I haven't been able to find, like, a good explanation either as to why playing a game, changing your name and then playing a game before that date causes, like, the game to crash or whatever. I just don't understand.
It's probably just some of that leftover, like, bad framework they had going with the PS3 PSN. How it was, like, dependent on like game specific servers and all that jazz, and they probably just brought things over in that way, and made it look like it was like Xbox Live, but it actually wasn't.
It's possible. It has to be something like that.
Yeah, bunch of trash.
So we got some more Sony flake news coming up in a sec, but first we're gonna go to and all of these are just hilarious to me. Hellblade, remember that game?
I do.
It's getting a physical release now, and also part and parcel with that is Shenmue, the main character, is getting a mental health scholarship named after her. So
what?
So Shenmue, the main character, because she goes through apparently psychosis or something in the game, she's getting some kind of scholarship named after her related to mental health education and so forth. So
where at DeVry?
I believe it's at Ross.
Ross.
Yeah, Ross.
Oh, like that Ross. Because like that's the name of the U of M business school. So I was like,
no, that Ross.
Yeah, like yeah.
I mean, you're sitting on your TV, you're watching the couch, your life's passing you by.
Get your ass up and come get you a education.
Get a Shenmue mental health scholarship.
I mean, like, yeah, this is just flake news. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a dick, but yeah, I think it's flake news.
I actually want to play this game though, because I've looked at it and it looks very atmospheric, and so if it does get a physical release and it's cheap, I might buy that, put it on the shelf.
I guess my main thing about it is I was under the impression that Microsoft bought Ninja Theory.
Yes, they did, but
so is it only coming out on Xbox?
No, I believe it's a PS4 as well.
Oh, because I know it's already out on PS4,
right?
Well.
So flake news.
Yeah, basically.
And lastly, and this will lead right into our first topic here, Sony has confirmed that they are working on next gen hardware. Not calling it the PS5 at this point, but they have confirmed, as to everyone's shock and surprise and awe, that they're working on next gen hardware. So what do you think about that?
Flake news.
Basically. So, well, anyway, that leads right into our first topic for this week. I think the question has to be asked if they're working on next-gen hardware, and there's already been a number of games confirmed, to be on next-gen materials, specifically Elder Scrolls 6 and whatever that sci-fi game was that Bethesda announced, Star Link or whatever. Yeah, whatever it's called. Those have been said to be on next-gen hardware. So what do you want to see, Marz V, from the next generation? What do you want to see? What don't you want to see from the next generation of consoles, inevitably?
First of all, I don't want to see it. At least not yet. I actually kind of quite liked the length of the time that the PS3 went. And up until the PS4 came out, I never felt like, I mean, I don't know, maybe you felt like it, but up until the PS4 came out, when I was playing the Xbox One, when I was playing 360 or PS3, I didn't feel like I was playing old games. Like, did you feel like that?
No.
Yeah,
no,
like
I feel like it was time though. I feel like when it did come out.
I mean, I feel like it was time, but like, one of the last big experiences I had was Last of Us, right? And that didn't feel like that still didn't feel like something I could have played in 08, even though it was on the same system. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and then now you have to look at the fact that the systems are, obviously going to be, because tech, it's exponential increments. So like the PS4 is that much better. So the PS4 and the Xbox One, especially the Pro and the X, are probably just that much better than the PS3 and 360. So you can just get a lot more life out of them. So I mean, just the first point I just want to make is that I'm honestly not that interested in seeing it until, I mean, I don't want to have to buy a new system next year. Definitely not. 2020, even for me personally, will kind of be pushing it. I'd like to see 2021. People probably don't agree with me on that, but that's just kind of where I stand. I still think that there's a lot of stuff for this generation to have. A lot of the games that I even like haven't even really got good yet. Like Tekken 7 is still on its I think it's better season pass at this point. I'm interested to see what they bring out for that. I was just looking at a trailer for Left Alive. That's not even out. We still got a bunch of HD remakes coming out. I still haven't got Cyberpunk. Still haven't got Last of Us 2. We still haven't got the new Halo. Shit, we don't even have Smash. We don't even have the actual Pokemon RPG that's supposed to follow, Let's Go. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not only will all those things have to come out, those things are gonna have to come out and have time to be good. You know what I'm saying? So I'm honestly content with sitting here for a little while. And to tell you the truth, I'll say this. I'm not going to say that there's nothing that I want to see, but I do remember having a talk with Zilla around the time when the 360 and the PS3, were first out. And he was saying, like, we've reached that point to where, like, graphics are just always going to look good, right? And at the time, I was like, no, they're going to just get better, and you won't say that, just like it got better with the Genesis. But I think there was some truth to what he said. Like, if you go back and you look at a screenshot of Halo 3, like, it just still looks like decent 3D art, right? It doesn't. You can tell it's like a little older, but it doesn't it doesn't look the way like Tomb Raider 1 does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even the way that Tomb Raider 1 looked in about 02, just like 5 or 6 years later. So I honestly can't even. I as much as I imagine and do stuff, I can't even really tell you what I really would want out of next gen hardware, besides maybe like the givens, like vastly better VR. Like I think it'd be cool if like, two people could put on VR and you'd be like in there next to each other and there were like touch sensors and all that type of stuff. But every controller has what now? At least 8 actual buttons. Like, I don't need more buttons. I don't need more complex games. Like, I honestly can't even tell you. I mean, like, what communication features would I need? What apps would I need? You know what I'm saying? Honestly, Because I mean, like they just added Alexa support for the Xbox One.
Yeah, I saw that.
They just added that, so like, I honest, and then it's to the point that like, especially when you talk about features like that, they're like the line between the PC that I'm recording this podcast on and my Xbox One X is so thin at this point. You know, it's literally like a matter of probably USB ports and OS. You know, so
yeah,
I think, I don't know.
I mean, for me, like, there's so many things. Like, I'm in agreement with you. I think there's just so many things to consider because, like, number one, I feel like we're just kind of hitting our stride with this generation as far as games go. At least on the PS4. I mean, I can't really speak for the Xbox players out there. I don't really know what they're looking forward to. But you know, as a PS4 devotee, I have lots of games to look forward to. You know, we got the Sekiro, obviously. We got Neo 2. We got Ghost of Tsushima.
FF7 remake. You know, we got stuff that's like far off.
That's been like missing. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, there's just lots and lots of stuff. You know, I mean, and we'll get to it later. We got 2 games coming out, you know, this week that are, you know, of course, multiplat is still like, you know, there's a lot of games coming out that are like good. I genuinely want to play them. It's not just because like, oh, that's the only thing out or whatever. So I feel like, and this year especially, I feel like this generation really hit its stride with a lot of like top notch games. I mean, you had God of War, you had lots of, I mean, even on like the Switch and stuff, you had like Dead Cells, and you know, of course, that was multiplayer too, I guess, but still, it felt at home on the Switch. You had Octopath. I mean, there's just a lot of like. Like I have a huge backlog going right now. I still need to play all the Yakuza games. You know, I mean, of course they weren't all this generation, but still, like they're all on there pretty much basically at this point. So it's just like,
and I don't want to cut you off, but I just because it's specifically about the Yakuza games, right? Like they're in the process of re-releasing all those on the PS4. Right?
Yeah.
And just like with every other HD remake, like they're about to make another Kingdom Hearts collection, right? So it's like we get another system, we're gonna get more collections. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like 3's not even out yet, and then,
right.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yakuza, they're doing all this stuff, and like I still want to go back. I still want to play like The Witcher again. I still need to beat God of War. I still need to beat Horizon. Like there's all this stuff that is just like accumulating that I need to do. And so I'm quite happy with this generation right now. I know some people might be upset about that or whatever, but
they probably have Xboxes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, not to take anything away from Cuphead or whatever, but still, like,
right? Yeah, even Anthem isn't even out.
Anthem's not even out. I mean, there's a lot of like huge games.
Just became a real game.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny 2 is, you know, supposedly, it's all like a reborn or whatever. I mean, I just feel like, yeah, like there's always been that kind of thing when like one generation ends and then another one begins, where it's like, oh, this dope new game came out on the PS3, but the PS4 is out. So it seems less dope because of that. It seems like an old game, you know, or something. Like you want to buy stuff for the new console, and then they end up making these like half and half games where it comes out on the new console and it's still on the old one. And it's just, I don't know. That stuff's just always been kind of like annoying to me. So I'm not looking forward to that, and I'm not looking forward to more like remasters, and like I really don't want to get a PS5 and like God of War
Horizon
remastered.
Zero Dawn remastered.
Exactly. Like I
8K.
I feel like they did that so to the nth degree with this generation, and I really don't want to see that again. I don't want to go through that again because I didn't buy most of those games that got remastered because it just felt like that was a cheap way of doing it. Oh, Detroit Become Human, you know, remastered with, you know, new content. Like, no, I'm not gonna go for that. So,
right, and that's another game we didn't even mention.
Exactly, I haven't even played that. I want to play that. I want to go through like some different story, you know, threads and everything. So, I just feel like it's the only reason I could see this happening is because it's like this arms race of like who has the best console or the best hardware. So I could see them coming out with a PS5 perhaps earlier than you would expect. And just for the sake of one-upping the One X, because the PS5 comes out and it has, a new platform. What's Xbox? Because One X has only been out for like a year or not even. Like, so like that is already going to like make that seem obsolete. And so I don't know if this is just some Sony strategy where it's like, oh, we're going to just take the wind out of their sails or something like that. And then Xbox is going to come out with, the Xbox, whatever.
Triple X,
Triple X OS, or something. And it'll be some new thing. And so I don't like these like halfway incremental increases in the power of the consoles. I didn't like that with the Xbox One S. I didn't like that with the PS4 Pro. I still don't like it with the One X. I want just one console that's going to last the whole generation. That's why I never bought any of those. Because I think it's going to become this arms race where it's, there's going to be a PS5 and then there's going to be some new Xbox and then there's going to be a PS5 Pro and then there's going to be a new Xbox, and it's just going to be like carrying capacity is going to, even Nintendo's doing it now, you're going to get a Switch remodel. So no, I'm hoping this is just, beginning research, and we're going to get a few more years at least, like you said, 2021 at least out of this generation, because it still needs some time to get all these games out.
One thing honestly, one thing I will just say though is that one thing I appreciated from Nintendo was how they are just totally to themselves. Like they're basically on the outside of all this generation talk. Like they come out with their games when they come out with them and people buy them, right? I would be willing to wager that Sony is really kind of getting to the point where they can pull that off. You know what I'm saying? Like the Xbox One X was even stronger than it is, right? Like I would still without a doubt have a PS4.
That's a very good point.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's a very good point.
Sony's kind of to that point where, like maybe they just, like maybe the thing we need most is just no generations anymore. Like Sony, just make your products and your platform, and when you have those exclusive, you know what? F that. That's what I want to see out of the next generation. It's just, I think Sony is still doing a good job on it, but like more focus on exclusive games. And I guess really, I shouldn't even say the next generation. That's just totally a shot at Microsoft, because PlayStation and Nintendo does it. And I'm not trying to single them out, but seriously, I think that's what I feel like had been missing. And I feel like that's where a lot of the fire came from in the older generations. The fact that I could have a PS2 and still want an Xbox, right? Like says something, right? Yeah. Because of the games they had. So,
and because how the PS2, overall was, still head and shoulders above Xbox, but it's still, there were games on Xbox that you wanted to play that you couldn't play on PS2.
Without a doubt, like probably a good 20 exclusives, like without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? Whereas with Xbox One, you'd be reaching. You'd have to go into the indies and well, it has Zoo Tycoon, like.
Well, yeah, I think that maybe that's I think a very good way of looking at it is like it's got to the point where Sony is just kind of doing their own thing. Like they're going to get all this third party stuff just because they're them, because they're PlayStation. Like they're going to get all that stuff regardless. And then they've got their first party stuff that they're just doing. And maybe they're not even really playing the console war game anymore. I think it's just Xbox is so hung up on this, like, we got the best console. We're better than that. Like they're like this ridiculous second place thing where they're trying to constantly be fighting this battle. And really, like, if they were just doing their own thing and making the Xbox an Xbox, and having Xbox exclusive content, that's all they need to do. Like you don't need to beat Sony. You just need to do what you do best. And they're just not doing that. They're just so hung up on trying to beat Sony that it's almost like Sega with Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly.
So hung up on beating Nintendo that they just made all these awful decisions. And
that's what I be saying. That Sega blood runs deep in Microsoft veins. I'm just be saying.
Very true.
60 is the Genesis. like that one,
That's very true.
light. The Xbox is still dope for sure, right? The OG one, but like like the 360 is kind of like this shining light, and I mean, Xbox was like a failure by numbers, not necessarily by its accolades or its games or whatever.
Yeah, objectively, I don't think it was a failure. Like, but as far as its library and stuff, but
yeah,
just sales in terms of sales, sure.
And then the one, we'll just talk about that later.
And one is the new Sega Saturn.
Legit.
Well, speaking of retro, since we mentioned Saturn and Genesis in that last little segment there, OverUnder, Marz Vindicator, or excuse me, Marz V.
Yeah, I don't care.
You, since I was struggling to come up with one more topic this week, you had kind of suggested this topic: overrated, underrated retro games. So, are you going to talk about a specifically one game or a group of games, or I'm interested to hear what you bring up on this?
It's a specific group of games.
A specific group.
Highly, highly overrated. Well,
okay, well let's hear it.
Okay. Now, okay. So yeah, this OverUnder. What actually is funny about this is technically an arcade game, but we're sticking to like 16 era. Okay.
Yeah.
So overrated, I think by far. These games get too many damn accolades. Okay, just too many. It's those damned Konami beat 'em ups. Okay, you know what I'm talking about? The Simpsons, the X-Men, and the Ninja Turtles. Now look. Now the Simpsons and the X-Men one, I'll kind of brush those off to the side because those games serve their purpose. Okay, they were arcade games, right? And the reason, my issue with these Konami beat 'em ups is that they are made to eat fucking quarters. Excuse me, but they're made to eat quarters. Like you get to the bosses, and all of them had the same thing. Like the boss just comes out, and they say something. Because just like when we first got voices in games, they're like, "You die," and they come out and they start shooting a bunch of stuff at you, and they're like bouncing around the screen. So now here you are. It's just like you, and if you playing X-Men, it's six people. Simpsons and Ninja Turtles is 4 people, and you just mashing buttons, mashing, and that boss is because they're getting hit faster than the game can process it, and then they start changing colors as they getting hit more, right? Like, and they're blinking and flashing, and they're just shooting out a bunch of shit at you still, and you're just like dying and pressing buttons and rushing to get quarters. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you got pizza sauce on your face. Like, it's, it's made for that, right? Like, it's made for that. So just what blows my mind is how people like just stroke the ego of Hyperstone Heist and Turtles in Time so much. Those games suck. I'm at home. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's no pizza. It's only 2 players. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't no big sound system. It ain't nobody's birthday party. I'm not on a cake high. So like, why in the hell would I play this? You know what I'm saying? Like, why in the hell would I play this? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like the Simpsons games and the X-Men games never came home. So that's why I was brushing them to the side. But like, I just, for the life of me, I can't. And it's like, if you play Streets of Rage or you play Final Fight, you can see what a true beat 'em up is. I mean, those games, the characters have tiers. You know what I'm saying? The characters have strategies and moves. Like, I haven't gotten too deep into Final Fight, but I know it's definitely comparable to the Streets of Rage. But yeah, like you have different, like you got characters who are totally strong or like strong and fast, or just fast. You know what I'm saying? You got all these different strategies. All the bosses have strategies to the point that where, yes, like you can play the game on the hardest setting and beat it with getting hit a few times, because if you know the strategy, right? It's a real game. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you can't enjoy button mashing yourself to death on those Super Nintendo and Genesis Ninja Turtle games, but why would you do that? And why? And it's just like those games are so coveted. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go to the game store and you just look in the cartridge bin. Oh yeah, we got Final Fight 1. But then you look in the thing and there's like Hyperstone Heist or Turtles in Time complete in box for $747. Like, it's stupid. It's just so stupid to me. Like, those I get it. Like, it's the 90s, it's Ninja Turtles, but like those games actually suck. Like, they actually suck. You know what I'm saying? And I don't even say that too much. But like, in comparison to what those consoles could do, and to the beat 'em ups that we had on those systems. I mean, the trilogy of Final Fight, the trilogy of Streets of Rage are wonders. And that's just those games. Like, there were other games as well. For the life of me, I just can't get why those beat 'em ups are so coveted. I just can't.
Oh man. Bebop and Rocksteady and Baxter.
Yeah, it's just foolish.
Pizza time.
Yeah, pizza time.
Of course, they put like 6 manholes on the screen, while you're fighting the boss, so you fall down there. It's dark down here, or whatever.
Right, yeah, little word bubbles. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was made as an arcade spectacle, right? Like, it's the same reason why Virtua Cop didn't drive the Saturn to being the best home console. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I get that, and we recognize it as such. Like, this is dope in arcade, but it's just not that dope at home. 3-track Daytona USA doesn't work as well at home when you got Gran Turismo or Ridge Racer, right? So, for the life of me, like, why do people just, turtles in time? Like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's purely nostalgia high on those.
That's what I'm saying. Like, pure nostalgia high.
Nostalgia. It's the 90s, Ninja Turtles, Simpsons. I mean, that is the 90s. X-Men, Ninja Turtles, and the Simpsons.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and this isn't. I'm not just saying. It's like, I remember getting together, like, the guys from Hyper Evo, like, way back when we were sophomores. When I think I had it on MAME. Like, I had like the X-Men one, and like, we were playing it, and we were like, yeah, like, this sucks. Like, because like, when you realize that you have, like, when you have infinite credits, like, it's literally just pressing buttons. It's nothing. There's nothing there to it. Because you do your power move, you lose life. You get hit by the boss infinite times, you lose life. Put quarters in a machine. Like, it was made to get money. It's probably one of the first like, games for profit we've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like, games as a service versus games as an art.
Yeah, I think the only reason people get attached to those is like, pick your favorite turtle and pick your favorite X-Men, like, right. It has that kind of thing going for it, that people, pick your favorite Simpsons character. Like, that, it's so easy to get, like, investment from the player on those things. So I think that's probably a big reason.
And I don't mind you playing it at the roller skating rink, but I'm not going to play it in my living room.
Well, damn, I really don't have anything that could. I mean, for underrated, like, I was just gonna name like a few. I was thinking, one like a deep one that I never hear people talking about, and this is a Genesis game, and I've seen it in like these classic game stores selling for $50 to $100 stuff. It was Ranger X. Did you ever play Ranger X Marz V?
No, I don't think I have. Is that a shmup?
It's a side-scrolling shmup. It was a Genesis exclusive, and supposedly the people that worked on this game also worked. It was under some different studio name or something like that. But I looked it up, and they went on to work on a lot of, like, they worked on like the Time Crisis series in the arcade. They worked on they actually worked on Shenmue apparently. In some capacity. I wasn't able to really figure out what that was, but so like these were like talented developers, and they worked on this game called Ranger X, which was a Genesis exclusive. I remember renting it a number of times as a kid, and I remember the graphics in this game were really outstanding, and it got lots of praise for like the amount of colors and stuff that they and just like the intricacy of the backgrounds and the lighting and stuff like that on the Genesis, which was like, heretofore unseen. And so it was it was a very visually impressive game. I remember there was like, all these, like, in the first stage, it was like this outdoor stage, and you'd be going along, and I guess you're going through like a sort of like a desert or something like that, but there was all these like missiles and planes and stuff coming at you, and you played as like this big like mech suit kind of thing. And I don't know if you're supposed to be a robot or whatever, but like, you'd be shooting all these missiles, and there was just like so much stuff on screen for the Sega Genesis. So it was really impressive looking. And I remember having a kind of atmospheric soundtrack as well. and it had this interesting mechanic with you had like a vehicle. So you could like, I think you could fly, first of all, like you could at least fly or hover in some way, shape or form. And there was also like a motorcycle thing that you could like dock onto, and then you could like control it that way too. So it was like a very intricate gameplay for a shmup for the 16-bit era. I didn't get very far in it. I just remember it from as being a game that I had rented multiple times because of the art style and the music and stuff like that, and the fact that like I never heard anyone talking about it ever. Like it just never gets brought up as like a great 16-bit era game. That on top of, and this is maybe debatable, the Rocket Knight series, specifically the second game in the series for the Genesis, Sparkster. Because I know a lot of people like Rocket Knight or whatever, so maybe it's not that underrated. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about Sparkster, the second game in the series, and specifically the Genesis version, because that game had a unbelievable soundtrack, and the graphics in that were really impressive as well. And I mean, that game, like it was like such high production values and stuff. I mean, it was basically on par with like a Sonic or a Mario game. Sparkster was on the Sega Genesis. I don't know about the SNES version. I don't remember that one being that great. I played that on emulators a couple of times, but the Genesis version, as was, I feel quite frequent with that console generation, the Genesis version of a lot of games was usually the superior version, at least to me. I mean, of course, maybe I was biased because I had a Genesis, but still. Sparkster on the Sega Genesis and Ranger X, two, quote unquote platformer or shmup in the case of Ranger X, that I don't think get a lot of play in this day and age. So,
well, I mean, and just what I'll say about that is I think that speaks to a bigger issue of the Genesis just not getting a lot of the recognition it deserves. Like I think obviously it gets some, but it's just it's just like how I always say, like, it's not at all strange to find someone or some store or whatever to like talk about retro gaming and like, oh, we do retro gaming, and they only have NES and 64, right? Like that's totally normal. But if somebody was just talking about like we only do retro gaming and they just had like a Genesis, like it would kind of be odd. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like Genesis is always looked at as this kind of secondary thing, but I mean, truth be told, it has, I won't say like flat out just as many classics, but like definitely enough to be like its own thing, but people just don't recognize it as such.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge people to go back and play that Sparkster for the Sega Genesis. Those graphics are like top notch on Sega Genesis. Like that first stage, when you just bust off the side of the screen, like, and the music kicks in, it's pretty awesome. So, but that's old stuff. We got some new stuff coming out this week and next week. We got Black Ops 4 just came out a couple of days ago on the 12th, and Soulcalibur 6 coming out next week on the 19th. So, Marz Vindicator, what are you thinking about these games?
Well, a couple of things. So, Soulcalibur has always been, it's always just been like kind of a staple fighter for me. I've always, I feel like I got every single one of them at launch except maybe 4. But yeah, I mean, it's just a series I love. Always glad when it comes out. It won, and I guess I was the first one, Soul Blade. I didn't get that when it came out because I started with Soulcalibur. But yeah,
I played that at your house though, and it was surprisingly good.
Yeah, like right for a PS1 game. No, it definitely was. But I do have it now though. So yeah, I mean, it's just like this really great series. I mean, I like to call it Tekken with weapons, but it's definitely not. It definitely has its own, style. Its own button setup and everything. It's somewhere in between Virtua Fighter and Tekken, kind of, because you got the block, guard with the button and the vertical horizontal move with the kick. And so yeah, I mean, I'm definitely hyped for that. It's got some guest characters, but most importantly, it looks like that game has, this is such a overused phrase, and gone back to its roots. I mean, they had the same characters for like 5 games, and then they switched it for 1, which was 5, and then now they're back to the OG cast. So, I mean, it's just 1 game, but yeah, I mean, we got the older characters back, and we and it looks like we're going to get some good modes. It looks like this game won't be totally for profit like some other fighters out there. Hint, hint, Street Fighter. So, it's definitely cool. And one, and yeah, I mean, Soulcalibur is never like my number 1 game. Honestly, if I were to rank it right now for where it's going to stand for me, it may set up being my number 3 because I'm definitely really hyped for it. But I really want to get. I mean, Tekken is always my number 1, and then I might try to get into Fighter Z here, but so it'll probably be the number 3. But I'm definitely going to play it a lot. And just one thing I want to say that I respect about Soulcalibur is that Soul Blade or Soul Edge was kind of in the midst of a like. There was always these fighting games that came out with these certain themes. They had all the martial arts fighters. So you have Virtua Fighter and Tekken. And so when it came to weapon fighters, Soulcalibur was out, I think, amongst some other ones. A few people know this, but Dynasty Warriors, the first one was a fighting game, a straight up fighting game. And so it was like, then you had the Last Bronx, right? So Soulcalibur is like the only weapons fighter that's still around.
Bushido Blade. Yeah,
Bushido Blade, right? So a lot of respect for it. And when it comes to Black Ops, that's another thing I can say about both of these games is these are both like a lot of games I would definitely want them, but a lot of me buying them is kind of based on respect. Because with Black Ops, anybody that comes out with a AAA game that supports 4-player local multiplayer, I just really want to buy it because even if I don't have friends that come over and play that all the time, that's just something I want to support. I never want that to go away because I want it to be there when I do want to use it. And I even appreciate the fact that, despite the fact that they didn't do campaign, it looks like there's even split screen for the blackout mode. So, and what's cool about that is, I mean, yes, like, we've gotten to this age where we're 30 and, we're, even when we talk about the old days, we're used to how games are now, right? Like, you get them and you play them. You're old, you get online, sit up with your friends, drink beers, and bitch about your wife. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what people our age do. But I get online, I get on videos, and I see people commenting on posts that talk about the split screen, and people are like, "Oh, dope! It means I can play it with my brother." You know what I'm saying? Like just because we're old doesn't mean that like young people don't have brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? And parents who are only going to buy them all one system. So yeah, like I couldn't imagine growing up in this day and age with like a close sibling or even having you come over. Like, what would we do? You know what I'm saying? Like watch each other play Fortnite. Like or you'd have to bring your whole system. So it's cool as hell that they put split screen and blackout mode. And I'm willing to bet that this is gonna be more of a help than a lot of people think. So overall, those are what was that?
Well, I mean, you knew Treyarch was going to do that because, like, they're
exactly
in OG. It's super experienced developer at this point, and like they know what they're doing when it comes to Call of Duty. I don't have that much confidence in the other 2 studios that do the Call of Duty games. That's why I don't buy those anymore. But I knew it was Treyarch's turn to come out with a new game. They love their little Black Ops series or whatever, so. They always deliver as far as features and content and just like doing the little things. I feel like so definitely.
Yeah, these guys. Yeah, that's where I knew them from. They did a lot of ports for Tony Hawk back in the day.
Yeah, they've been doing stuff. I mean, they used to be just kind of like whatever developer, but like they just did ports and re-released stuff and things like that, and kind of like, throwaway games or whatever, but they built themselves up into, basically this powerhouse to where they can manage something like releasing, a Call of Duty game every 3 years. So I think it's, they've definitely come a long way. And I think they they definitely seem to care about the quality of their product. I mean, they're the only studio as far as the Call of Duty development studios that was releasing new content for their entry in the series, after the newer ones were out. I mean, they were still releasing Black Ops 3 stuff last year or no, earlier this year. Yeah, earlier this year. And that's 2 years old.
Black Ops 3, Black Ops 3 has been I don't know if it's gonna be like the most played, but I feel like it's to me that was the Call of Duty game before Black Ops 4, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, Infinite Warfare, whatever. World War II was just kind of whatever.
I forgot about that.
Exactly. Like nothing more needs to be said. So, I mean, I don't always care for their art style, art direction, aesthetic and everything, but Treyarch definitely does as far as features and just polished product. I mean, they give you people always complain about Call of Duty games come out and it's always just the same game every year. It's they give you so many different features and game modes and everything, sometimes even hidden stuff within the same product. At least Treyarch does. I don't know about the other developers, but
Sledgehammer.
Yeah, Sledgehammer, Raven, or whatever the other one is. It's or Infinity War. Excuse me, Infinity War.
Yeah, because I got Black Ops 3 late, but when I bought that game, and I was like, this is 6 games. This is the orange box.
Exactly.
Literally, it was 6 games. It was the campaign, the multiplayer, which had 4-player local and bots and everything. And you had zombies. Then you had that wall run mode that was Edge. Then you had that other mode that was zombies with a campaign. I forgot what it was called. And then you had that 2D game, that top down 2D game.
Yeah,
it was wild.
And it's people want to it's just I think a lot of the Call of Duty hate has maybe it's just kind of memeified at this point to where it's just of course it's almost coming around to the point where it's it's more cool to actually like Call of Duty than to hate Call of Duty. Right. It used to be, everyone liked Call of Duty, so it was cool to hate Call of Duty. And then, then that caught on, and now it's coming back around to where it's hey, let's actually play some Call of Duty. It's actually kind of dope. And that's actually coming back into style now. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, come on, Treyarch makes a good product. You don't have to like everything about it. You don't have to like the concept of a yearly release game with its, but I mean, even that, it's it's not like NBA 2K where it's basically the same game, which is updated rosters and a different menu or something. I mean, usually this has got a full, completely new maps and new weapons and new graphics engine, or at least updated in some way, shape, or form, new modes. So I there's a lot of work that goes into these things. So I mean, at its core, it might be the same game, but give it a shot. As far as Soulcalibur, I mean, I know we haven't been talking much about Soulcalibur, but I got to play the network test, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm excited to get online with the new game once it comes out. And I mean, yeah, I was shocked at how many matches I lost. Just because I thought as a legacy player that I'd be able to survive. I mean, I didn't really understand all of the new mechanics per se, but I thought just based on my experience with the game and everything that I'd be able to survive on that. But I was not. I was easily defeated in a number of cases. But by the end of the network test, and I did play it right up till they cut it off. They did let it go a little bit late. Actually, they let it go about a half hour late or so on PlayStation. And I was finally starting to get some wins in there and starting to get used to it. But I mean, really, everyone was just kind of pressing buttons and stuff because nobody understood how to do all the different, new flashy mechanics and everything, and supers and how to deal with their meter and everything. So it'll be interesting to get back into the game and get into practice mode and try to understand Shenmue, who I'm decided is going to be my main this time. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I guess, I'll see everybody, online, and I'll be, rage quitting and everything. So
there it is, just like an old man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I do like about Soulcalibur. I mean, some people call it button mashy, and I can see it to a certain extent, but it's a game that's like it's very fun to get into, even if you don't play fighters, or if you never played that game. You can kind of get into it and still feel like you're doing something. Like my girlfriend was beating my ass the other day in Soulcalibur 5 when I wasn't using Taki.
She's just pressing X, 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 X.
Square, because X
square.
I wish she was just pressing X.
X is square.
Low hitter.
X is square.
Oh yeah, see, yeah, you're on PlayStation now.
Still, it's forever Xbox / Dreamcast in my mind though, for some reason. So,
yeah. Dreamcast. That's Soulcalibur. Yeah, when you're talking Soulcalibur, you gotta talk Dreamcast.
You gotta talk Dreamcast. XXX.
And that is something that I need. I need Soulcalibur 1 and 2 on the PS4. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Xbox has no like current gen exclusives, but they have Soulcalibur 1 and 2 on there. So like I kind of like that. So I need those on PS4.
Perhaps someday. Well, I mean, 6 is looking to be pretty good. Like I mean, it looks like it could supplant 2. Once everything, all the characters are ironed out and everything. So,
I mean, it's regardless. It's just how like Tekken 4 is Tekken 4. It's always going to be that one.
Yeah. True. You're never going to be able to play Necrid again on.
It's too bad.
Or Assassin or whatever. Yeah. So
right.
Well, last topic for today. And I know, like I said in the intro, everyone who listens to this podcast is probably like, oh, here we go. Queasy Crayfish talking about Shenmue again. But okay. So I'll just be straight up. I mean, Shenmue, like, as I've said before, this is a game and a series that I think about in some way, shape, or form every single day of my life. Whether, something in real life reminds me of it, or, I'm playing some other game and I see something that is similar to Shenmue, or I'm listening to the soundtrack or whatever. Because I have a playlist on YouTube, because, I have YouTube Premium, I guess it's called now. And I have a playlist there that I curated myself of just like, nice little ambient themes from Shenmue 1 and 2 that I like to play sometimes when I'm going to sleep, because it's just very relaxing to me and it just takes me to another place. So that's another way to just connect to the game frequently every day. But I digress. So I played Shenmue 1 and 2 back in the day, right when they first came out, in the early 2000s, even. I think it didn't come out in America till 2000, right? Shenmue 1. But, they were games that were extremely important to me at that time. And then I went a long, long time, almost 2 decades without really ever seriously playing them again. And so I kind of took on this attitude of like, well, they probably didn't age very well. They probably just, one of those games that, you played back in the day and you thought it was great, but it's actually just this thing or whatever. So then they come out with Shenmue 1 and 2 on modern consoles, and I buy it, and I don't even open the game for at least 2 weeks. I don't even, open it or play it or anything. And I'm just like, it's Shenmue, whatever. I start playing it, and it's everything that I thought it was and more. So before I get all, misty-eyed about it, Marz Vindicator, do you have any, reflections or opinions on Shenmue 1 and 2 and the series as a whole?
Well, I haven't really played the HD remakes that much. Like basically at all.
The ports, they're not even they're just straight up ports.
And I've only gotten I've probably played the first maybe hour, maybe not even that, of Shenmue 2, and that was way back when. But with Shenmue 1, I mean, Shenmue 1, if I was making like a top 20 games of all time, it would probably be in there. It may, I don't know if it'd be in my top 10, but you know, definitely in there when you talk a top 20. I mean, it is just, it was probably one of the first games where, you know, I really felt like we're like when I felt like I'm like playing a game from the future. You know, it was, you know, because you would like imagine a lot of things about games, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like you could just do stuff like, you know, like, you know, you may have like a level in a game where there's vending machines or something in the background, and you're like, oh, it'd be cool if you could use them. And then you play Shenmue, but like you actually just can't. Like you go up to it and you buy a drink, and he drinks it, and he's like, you know, he like throws the can in the trash, like, you know what I mean? Like it was just nuts. You know, you're talking to people. And like I mean, yes, like I know the voiceovers, you know, but I mean, like as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't notice that much. But it's like you go and like you like talked to people, you know what I'm saying? And
every NPC in the game,
you know,
you can talk to.
You know, some of them just said stuff. Hey, mister. You know, some of them like, you know, get out of here or whatever they used to say. You know, like you got like this wide like variance of reactions. And then, you know, they were like, I mean, you could just walk into stores and like buy stuff, do stuff, go to the arcade. You got allowance. I'm sure I've probably said these things before, but yeah, it was, you know, that along with, you know, as much as we hate on the Dreamcast, you know, that and probably along with something like Power Stone, I can kind of see why some people had that place in their hearts for the Dreamcast, because yeah, like it was like, wow, like we're in the future of games now, you know. And then too with Shenmue, which was another thing, was Shenmue may have been one of the first times where like I truly realized that I was like a Sega fan, and it made me like feel proud and like to be one, and I like felt like one, because you know you had these like retro games in it that, you know, that you could play in the arcade. There were Sega games. You could get Sonic and Virtua Fighter characters out of the vending machines,
and Knights, and
you know, Knights. And so it was like that Sega, like me just sticking with that brand had now like paid off, right? So I could enjoy. I mean, just the fact that you had like a white Sega Saturn that you could take out, right? It like it made me feel like, oh yeah, like I know what this stuff is, you know, like I've spent time with Sega, you know. So yeah, it was just definitely underrated in terms of, I think it's underrated in every category, to tell you the truth. You know, it's just amazing. And that's just Shenmue 1. I haven't even really played Shenmue 2 like that.
Well, yeah, Shenmue 2 is a very different game in a lot of aspects. But the point I wanted to make with this topic was, I think Shenmue, when it came out, and I think still today, defies all gaming conventions. And I think it is still unlike anything on the market. Because a lot of people will say, you know, oh, Yakuza is like a successor to Shenmue or whatever. Yakuza can't go 5 seconds without throwing something in your face. At least the Yakuza Kiwami. That's the only one I've played, so maybe the other ones aren't like that.
No, any of them.
Yeah,
it's true.
But I mean, yeah, like you're walking down the street and people are fighting you, or someone's coming up asking for money, or you know, someone's saying, oh, I lost this thing, can you help me find? Like, you know, it can't go 5 seconds without throwing something in your face. Shenmue is... The action in Shenmue revolves around things that are in no other games. The action in Shenmue and the things that you are supposed to care about and value are observance, exploration, routine, economy, time management, morality, community, and leisure. This was my list that I came up with, because I mean, especially in Shenmue 1, Shenmue 2 to a much lesser extent, but in Shenmue 1, you spent a lot of time in the game is spent just like opening drawers and opening cabinets and examining objects and things like that. And like, there's no other game where that is like a core function of the game. And it's funny because like it has this reputation of being like, oh, it's this martial arts game, and you know, you have all these fights and stuff. but like there's only in the first game there's only like a handful of fights, really. I mean, you could probably, and some of them are avoidable, so I mean you could easily go through that game and maybe only like throw hands, like less than a dozen times, because the main function of the game is like exploring and like being mindful of your surroundings and stuff. Routine. I mean, like I said, like the routine of like you go to bed at night at a certain time. If you're not home by 11:30, the game just takes you home. There's no staying up all night. There's no like staying out at the slot house for an extra hour. Like there's no staying out at the arcade. You go home. It takes you home. It forces you to do that. Economy. You only get a certain amount of money each day until you get to the harbor and you start working for the harbor. But even then, I mean, it's again routine. Every day it takes you to work. The moment you wake up, you go straight to work. You do not get a chance to run around town first and buy a bunch of capsule machine toys or whatever. You don't get to do that. You go straight to work and you do your job. Time management. There's a lot of events that won't trigger unless you're there at a certain time. Unless you're there at nighttime or daytime, or sometimes you have to wait for someone to show up or something like that. In Shenmue 2, it actually gives you the option to actually wait and it'll pass time for you. But in the first game, there's none of that. If someone says, I'll be there the day after tomorrow at 2:00, you have to go through 2 whole days worth of time and figure out a way to spend your time in the game. Morality also, I think, is a key component of this, and this is something that I think is very unique to Shenmue because let's be honest here, most games even if they put you in control of a specific character, usually who that character is somewhat malleable. Either it's like just straight up like you don't get any choices, like a Master Chief or something like that, and he just shoots people, or you have some sort of choice of, even like Kiryu in Yakuza, it's like, am I going to pay, some guy's trying to scam me. Am I going to just pay him, or am I going to fight him? Or I go to the cabaret and it's like, oh, am I going to be nice or am I going to be a dick? Like you get some level of choice. But with Ryo Hazuki in Shenmue, you play as Ryo, and rather than projecting yourself onto him, you play his role. Like there's no circumstance in Shenmue where Ryo is going to be rude to an old lady or something like that, or he's going to be mean to some child or something like he has his morals and his values, and that's it. And I think that playing the game and experiencing that and being involved with his story is an extremely unique experience. And I think he's actually one of the most deep and profound characters in games that I have seen. And I didn't really realize this until I was older and played the game again. Because when I was a kid, I just thought, he's just some guy who, gets caught up in this revenge or whatever. But really, like, there's so much more going on with his character. And I think what's fascinating to me is, like, a lot of games like Mass Effect and stuff like that, like, there'd be multiple endings and, you can be bad or you can be good or whatever. Shenmue 1 and 2 both have bad endings. A lot of people don't know this. You can trigger these bad endings, and the only way you can do that is if you, as the player, choose not to participate in Ryo's story. If you choose not to play as Ryo, because Ryo is consumed with revenge for his father's death, and that's all he cares about. That's like literally the only thing that motivates him to get up in the morning. And so if you choose to not take that seriously and you just dick around for days and days and days and months and months and months in the game, the bad ending will trigger and Lan Di will come and kill you because you have not chosen to. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen those bad endings, but in both cases, it's where Lan Di comes and he basically kills you because you've chosen not to take Ryo's story seriously. And some players may not do that. Some players may think it's boring or whatever, and they don't want to do that. They just want to, they want to play Grand Theft Auto or whatever. But if you play as Ryo and you follow along with what he chooses to do, I think you end up with an extremely complex character. And, I don't mean to just monologue endlessly here, but this is such a this was such an interesting thing to me when I played this. I feel like my second playthrough of these games, because I had never really, I got up to like the warehouse number 8 section in Shenmue like once, like 5 years ago or something like that. But I'd never really like seriously sat down and played through the whole game since I first played it. So like this experience of playing them again on this re-release was like it was right up there with like the first playthrough, because I understood it in such a different way. And so the last thing I want to point out here is Ryo's character. I don't think I've seen a character like this. I haven't played all the Final Fantasies. I don't know all the deep characters or whatever in those, but I can't think of a character that has this many like layers in a video game as Ryo does. Because in Shenmue 1, like when I first played it, it was just, revenge or whatever. But I came to realize in this second playthrough that really the quest for vengeance on Ryo's part, because his father gets killed by Lan Di, he goes out and he starts asking questions, and he swears to take vengeance for his father. If you really pay attention, it seems like his vengeance quest is actually just a way of avoiding his personal fears and his responsibility, because there's talk of, once his father died, he was supposed to take over the running the dojo. He was supposed to, Nozomi, his would-be girlfriend, she kind of chides him for not applying to colleges, for not going to, these different seminars and stuff like that. And just his romance with Nozomi, like she's like all in for Ryo. Like she's like giving him all these signals, and he just ignores all of them. And I think that's because like he's afraid of dealing with that stuff. He's less afraid with dealing with the Mad Angels and Lan Di and stuff. Like that's what gives his life purpose. And so he decides to avoid all of the personal things and stuff that might allow him to, open up emotionally to Nozomi or to his family or anything like that. Instead, he decides to go for hard vengeance and doing whatever it takes to find Lan Di and get revenge for his father. And that leads to him leaving home and abandoning all of his past and everything like that. Like that to me was such a unique and interesting thing. And especially when you get to the second game, where you see Ryo encountering, first of all, dealing with his naivete of like, not everyone is like, he goes to Hong Kong and he has to realize very quickly that people are just out to scam you and steal from you and abuse you and stuff. Like not everyone's nice like they were in Yokosuka. Like this is a completely different place, and he has to learn a lot of lessons very quickly. And he hardens himself so much to where the end of the game, there's a moment where at the end of the game, Wong, who is this like young kid that you befriend sort of, and Yuanda Zhu, who is a character that he's seeking after for information, both get kidnapped by Don Yu, who's this like crime boss in Kowloon. And like, he's got all these gangsters, and he's, the guy's like unbeatable, and he's, this super powerful guy, and he's got Lan Di on his side and everything. And this guy, Don Yu, has kidnapped these two important characters, and Ryo turns to this other character and he says, "I will rescue both Wong and Yuanda Zhu." And he says it like so flatly and robotically. It's like he has just hardened himself to this unbelievable, to where he's like almost inhuman, robotic. Like he's just consumed with the only thing that motivates him is this vengeance. And of course he does, and he rescues everybody, he defeats the bad guy. And then the game takes this profound shift to the final act, the final disc, if you were playing on the Dreamcast, the fourth disc, which comes out of nowhere, which is the most absurd thing. No one has ever seen this in a game before. The fourth disc, you literally just walk through the forest with Shenhua, this Chinese girl, and there is no conflict, no danger, except for in one part. But by and large, there's no danger, no conflict, no bad guys. All you do is walk and talk with Shenhua for like 4 hours. and yes, and Ryo reconnects through that emotionally with his his home self, the way he was in Yokosuka. And you see this like softening again back to like his original state. And like, it was just like this whole experience of playing these games over again. It was just this whirlwind, and the understanding of the finer points of the plot. You know, I don't mean to ramble on endlessly here, but I think these games in this series, like Shenmue 3, supposedly is not even going to be the last game in the series. I hope it comes out next year. It might not even come out next year. Who knows? But like conceivably, I could be waiting for the conclusion to this series when I'm like 40 or 50 years old. And like that itself makes it like this even more legendary, unique experience to me. And so I think this series is timeless in a way that has never been seen before and will probably be never seen again. And so, you know, I've thrown shade at Yu Suzuki and Sega and AM2, I'm sure, countless times. But playing these games over again, it made me realize that like this is a masterful work of art. And of course, it's got its rough edges, it's got its problems or whatever. But it's the most unique thing I have ever played. And I don't think there's anything else that will ever match that. And so, yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, yeah, I definitely could understand why somebody would feel that strongly about the Shenmue series. I think that there are, I think that there are some things that are in that game that you rarely see in other games. Like for example, like the time management thing. Like that's one thing that I really like, because that's in the Persona series as well. And yeah, like it's kind of the same thing where like, you know, it's like if something is like a day after, you have to go for like 2 days, like to get there. And I haven't played all of them, but like in 5, for example, you know, like it's there. But the thing with that though is that like it's still very much so a JRPG. So like, for example, like there's no actual like timer. There's just like the concept of days, right? So like if you went into like some dungeon, you could just be there for like, you know, you could be there for 5 minutes, or you could stay in there for 10 hours if you wanted to, right? Like it wouldn't be in game time. Like when you came out, it would still be like they still make you go to sleep and stuff, but there's no like real strong concept of like actual time. You know, it's like where Shenmue actually has like a watch, right? So like you can't find things like you can't skew the game to make the game let you stay out, right? Like it's gonna take you home. You know what I'm saying? Like when you like, and it goes on this in-game time thing. So it's definitely like a much deeper concept in that game. And then a lot of those things too, like you said, I think was a good point that you brought up, that like, you know, it is a game in the sense that, yeah, it has you do these other kinds of things, but it's not a game in that like very traditional sense where there's just like, you know, kind of repeated, you know, gamey element, you know, like, because as in Persona, like it has some deep character development, whatever, but like it's still a JRPG, right? So you still have to like fight and gain experience and do battles, where it's like that in Shenmue it's this true experience. So yeah, I actually, you know, I do enjoy people being like, oh, like, you know, there's nothing like this out here. And I'm like, well, you know, I played every game ever. Actually, this game is like that. But I think that with Shenmue, this is one of those ones where I think it is like truly probably unique. You know, at least also from what I've played, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff with Ryo, I mean, it was just like, especially by the end of Shenmue 2, like, it's funny because like Shenmue 2 is a very different game. It starts off like the first section of that game where you play when you're in Wanzai and stuff in Hong Kong. It's more or less similar to Shenmue 1. It's like a little bit more fast paced. And then the second section of that game, when you go to Kowloon, it's much more like a video game, like an action game, more closer to Yakuza in some ways. And there's lots of action scenes and cutscenes and all that stuff. And it kind of like the story strings you along really fast. And then it goes back. And then, like I said, the final section of that is, and I'm not going to lie, it's alienating. Like it's a lot of people are going to play that final section and be like, what is this? Like, this is just a huge bump in the road. But I think if you take a step back and you kind of try to appreciate it for what it is, and just look at it as like, like they made a game out of walking through the mountains with a Chinese girl. Like there's just nothing like it.
Right.
And, and I challenge people to show me a character that's deeper and more complex than Ryo Hazuki in a video game. I mean, like at the end of that second section, I just imagine like there should have been some scene where he actually like takes off his jacket and his shirt, and you just see the bruises and cuts and just like the physical toll that all of this, lust for vengeance has taken on his body, because like you get into so many fights and so many action scenes. Like you got to just imagine like just the just the sacrifice that he's taking for like no reason. He could just stay home with Ine-san and Fukusan and look after the dojo and everything would be happy. But he's just animated by this lust, and I think it just was. It left me obviously not speechless, but breathless. So.
Most definitely. And I think, again, it's just amazing to think that, like we're saying all this, but like just 5 years prior to that, the best thing on a Sega home console was Sonic 3.
Yeah.
Like just 5 years. So like, just like look at the massive jump in, our artistic, freedom and all the stuff that Shenmue had. So it's crazy.
And that's Yu Suzuki for you. Mm-hmm. One of the greats, I think. Most just on definitely. The strength of that series alone. I mean, but we don't want to go on all day and all night about this. Of course I could, because that's Queasy, Crayfish, and Shenmue are one and the same, but I think that's enough for status quo number 24. And this is Queasy Crayfish. We'll see you next week for number 25.
We'll see you guys after that. That whole episode is going to be me talking about Streets of Rage.
I hope so. You should, actually. Get a deep exegesis of Streets of Rage series.
Well, one thing that I can say is interesting about our game taste, or about us, is like, what's funny is that like I feel like I've played more like RPGs and stuff, whereas I feel like, at least to me, like I feel like you you do like shooters, like I feel like you, or like Command & Conquer, like you play these like games, right? But then like our most favorite games are like our favorites for those exact opposite reasons. Like you love like Shenmue because it's just this massive experience, and I love Streets of Rage 2 because I think it's just like, I just think it's like the shining example of like a timeless game, So that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll explore this many times in future episodes.
We most definitely will.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next week for episode 25. Stay tuned. It's Queasy Crayfish,
Marz V,
and we are out of here.
Peace.